Hi, this is Gayle from BERNINA of Naperville, and it's time for a brand new season of BERNINA Software Building Blocks. Now, this program is the dreamchild of Debbie Lashbrook. She is the premier software educator for BERNINA, and she comes up with 6 lessons a year, and those lessons and her videos live on a platform called the BERNINA Skill Hub. When you order the BERNINA Building Blocks program from us, you're actually ordering access codes to use on the BERNINA Skill Hub site. So like instead of a credit card, you're entering in this access code or promotional code to redeem your software building blocks. And this time it's volume 2. They don't call it 2024 or 2025, it's volume 2. So that is what you should be watching right now. So let's get to the presentation deck that BERNINA of Naperville puts together for you, because we add our own little steps and tips and tricks as well. So we have additional content. You're watching the video here for free, but there's lots of little goodies if you sign up with us that are going to come emailed to you every time there's a new lesson. And it's every other month on the 15th of the month, starting February 15th, which is today, and wrapping up December 15th. So let's get to it. So for those of you that have not done the BERNINA Software Building Blocks with us for 2024, 2025, we're doing it in a very similar fashion. So we get the topic for this from BERNINA. So Debbie Lashbrook puts together 6 lessons a year, and she kind of comes up with a curriculum, but then we add to it. We kind of put our own spin on a project or something that has inspired us from the lesson plans. So for lesson 1, pretty much the topic is knockdown stitches. The video is here in our interactive presentation deck. Now you're only going to get the interactive presentation deck if you sign up for our BERNINA of Naperville software building blocks. And you can find that right at berninaofnaperville.com and the 2025 version of our software building blocks. So you're watching this video maybe because you're on our YouTube channel and you haven't signed up for the program yet, because the video is free. But the additional stuff and our additional links and handouts and things like that, you're going to sign up for so that you can get these from us. Well, where do you get this stuff if you do sign up, right? So BERNINA of America has a direct-to-you learning platform, and it's called the BERNINA Skill Hub. So on the BERNINA Skill Hub, you will visit there, you type in the URL, and then you sign up with your email and you create a password and all of that good stuff. And then you can buy classes and you can follow along with different programs. When you buy this program from BERNINA of Naperville, you're buying access codes. So instead of entering your credit card information, you enter in a promotional code that you get from us, and that gives you the access to the building blocks program for 2025. So I explain it in a video that you can find on our YouTube channel. You can also give us a call or whatever. But there's loads of instructions from BERNINA of America for this month. And there is a lesson on lettering presentation. There's a creator level version of the knockdown fills, and then there's the designer plus level. There's also the video that streams on the Skill Hub. And just to kind of like show you the Skill Hub, you click this link, right? And you can see that I already have a user name and password and all of that stuff. And then if you're already registered onto the BERNINA Skill Hub, if you haven't logged in for the day or whatever, they're going to email you a verification code. And then once you get that verification code, you have to enter it in here. And then you can see these are some of the classes that I already have loaded in that I've been taking or I've been previewing or whatever. But there is a course catalog. And like I mentioned, as we scroll down, we'll find, there it is. This is what we're working on right now, our BERNINA Software Building Blocks Volume 2. So you would add this to your cart.
You'd then go to your cart, you check out. Yes, I am me and I want to continue. And then when you go to checkout, it's asking you, do you have a promotion code? Well, that's where you enter your access codes that you get from us. So you would click here, you'd enter your access code, then you'd place your order, then you would be able to see the videos from Debbie. In addition, there are embroidery files that you will also receive that you can stitch out. If you kind of like hit a roadblock with working along with the lesson, then you get the actual files that you can download here that, you can stitch out and kind of see what it's supposed to look like. So this month, it's all about working with fluffy fabric and then how you add these knockdown stitches. So look at this. So what is a knockdown fill? Well, basically it's a loose fill that is going to allow you to kind of flatten down any fabric that's floofy so that you can do other things to it. So you use this in cases where you want to create different textures on a fluffy fabric, or you use it to kind of flatten something so that your lettering will present better. And there's lots of different applications for this. And so you're going to go through the Bernina of America content to get like all of the ins and outs on this. And we were inspired by this article that we stumbled upon on Bernina's blog, which is weallsew.com. And Mary Beck actually created a blog post to kind of talk you through this design that you see here on the right. However, with that in mind, we had like our own little project where we took all of this information and we compiled it into what I would call a split letter applique reverse embossed stitch. That's a mouthful, right? So for lesson one, we're focusing on some of the techniques we learned in last year's software building blocks, which was lesson three, playing with offsets. And this is your link here to the video. We're going to use the knife tool in editing to splice a letter. And then we're going to play with offsets and we're going to do a lot of things with this. But we're going to take our learnings from Debbie's teachings this month to add our own spin on this. So the supplies. You're going to need a fluffy hand towel to monogram on, and you're going to need Aquamesh Plus, which is the water soluble stabilizer with a peel and stick application, and then also Stitch 2O water soluble topper. That's like kind of a saran wrap looking piece that's water soluble that goes on top of the fluffy towel to flatten it down even more. I used isocord thread. I used white that matches my towel. And then I used black as a contrast. And then I used OESD white bobbin thread in the bottom. And the featured hoop this month is our medium square clamp hoop. And then just for best practices, when you watch the Bernina of America video content, you want to work along with Debbie, and I would highly recommend that you try to stitch the designs that she helps you create, and it just helps get your head around all of this stuff. But now let's get into what is our split letter reversed embossed monogram and how do we do it? So let's go over to our software and have a look at this. Here we are in our Bernina embroidery software. I am in the Designer Plus version of the program. And let's just have a look with what we're going to do today. So we're going to make a split letter monogram with reverse embossed features. So it's really fancy, but it's just really playtime, So the first thing that I want to do, and I'm showing you this way because I think some of us are more comfortable working in the actual embroidery side of the software, but I'm going to go to lettering and I'm going to click in my design area with the left click, and I'm going to hold down Shift and hit D because it's a capital D that I want to use for my monogram, and then I'm going to hit Enter on my keyboard. Then I'm going to go to my object properties, and I can do that a couple of ways. One way that is fun is to right click on the D and select object properties. In that case, I want to select Franklin Gothic Heavy. This is just a true type font that I happen to have loaded on my computer. So this TT represents true type. And what's going to happen with you is your computer might have all different types of fonts that are different than mine. When we hit the drop down menu and we see other fonts, as we look up here with the little zigzag there in red, that indicates that that is a font that's loaded with your Bernina embroidery software. And depending on whether you have Creator or you have Designer Plus, you're going to have more options there. So that's the difference there. So with that in mind, I am still sticking with this True Type Franklin Gothic Heavy font, and I'm going to say OK. And you can see there that this little guy is thick, but it's pretty small. So I want to change the size. And up here, hang on a second, let me be kinder to you. I'm going to use my mouse highlighter. There we go. Now, if you look up here, there is a width and height measurement. So when I select it, and we can tell that it's selected because it's got the little bars around it. If you want to do true view, which is what we're in right now, it looks like the stitches. So if I zoom in, you can see that kind of looks like simulated stitching. If I select this guy, now it's in a more fuchsia, not as pretty. This is called design view. So the cool thing about design view is when I click on something and it turns fuchsia, I know that what I'm looking at in fuchsia is what is selected. So now I want to change the width of this to 3.5. And I'm going to then type enter on my keyboard and look at how much bigger this has made my design. Now, another thing you might want to do at this point is select your hoop. So I'm going to right click on my hoop icon over here, and I am going to choose my Bernina Medium Clamp 8.5 hoop. Another thing that you might find helpful is if we do automatic centering. Now, sometimes I like manual centering, but down the road, you might like the automatic centering. Another thing that I like to do at this point is to go to Design tab, which is up here at the top of our window, and I like to go to Auto Start and End, and I want to make sure that Start Position box is not checked and the End Position box is not checked. This is a way that I can avoid like a stitch in the center of the hoop at the beginning and end of my design. So there's another, as I zoom in and out of this design, if we go to our zoom tools over here and I hit the drop down menu, I can say to hoop. And now we can see the size of our D in relation to the hoop. Now, before we do anything else, since we know what we're selecting and what it looks like and everything, we're going to have to do some things to prep this letter because ultimately we want to turn this into a lacework fill. But if you look down here, I don't really have the option to take a letter and turn it into a lacework fill easily. Now, of course, I can go to edit and I can break apart, and now I can click it, and then I have my lacework options. Break apart is a little bit different than ungroup. It kind of like smacks the letter into just creating curves. And that's something in graphics that we do sometimes with fonts. But now this is an item that is broken apart, and now we can apply different pattern fills to it. But when I do my lacework fill, this presents an issue. So now this might not be a problem, these extra little 2 lines of stitching, if you're doing the embossed stitching like we're doing right now, because you can't really see the stitch, it's just flattening down the puff of the toweling. However, if you're a little bit picky like me, You may want to try to get rid of these lines because you want something that looks really, really nice and polished. And so let's have a look at this way of doing it. So now what I want to do is I know that I kind of did this a little backwards, but I explained to you that I'm doing this because most of us are more comfortable with typing in our text in our embroidery side. But I want to select a little button up here that's convert. And this is really cool because when I select this button, I get the option of converting this to a vector. And I want to convert it to an actual vector, which is the top radial dot there. And now this is going to open up my Bernina artwork canvas. And artwork canvas actually uses the Corel Draw side of your program. So now that I have, see how this is selected? And there's a couple ways that you can select it. We could click away to deselect, and we could select just the fill or just the outline, but we're just going to keep it like this. I haven't touched anything. It looks exactly like it was when it came into this side. So then we have this very same convert tab right here. So now this is going to convert this back to an embroidery design, but this time it's going to look like a fill stitch. And I know that this seems silly that we did this, but what has happened with this, and I'm going to show you the difference here. So let's look at this one. And now let's go back to our lettering. And I'm doing all of the things that I did before. But one thing I want to point out to you is if we would try to take this and make it a fill stitch like we want, it's not going to come out as great as we want it to. So that's why I go in, I make it a vector, and then I bring it in. Otherwise, what happens is I get this weird angle, number one, and I get a break in my design right here. So by flattening the image and making it a vector, when I select this and I turn it into my lacework fill, which is what we're going to do right here, I don't have any awkward points in the design that are going to come out strangely. So that's why I do that. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to add a satin stitch outline around this D. So I'm going to do that with a tool under our Edit tab called Outlines and Offsets. And I want the object outlines. I want this box to be checked because I want this to be right on my shape that I created. I want to use satin line, and I just am fine with color number 1. But I want to make sure that offset outlines is not checked and that include holes is not checked. So now I'm going to select OK. So now essentially what we have right now is our lacework shape outlined by a satin stitch. So let's have a look at this lacework stitch. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see. It's not quite as close together as I would like to flatten down this terry cloth fluffy towel that I'm using. And you saw Debbie talked about all different kinds of ways in her presentation that you can create a quote unquote knockdown stitch. So I'm going to work with this one, and I just need my stitches to be a lot closer together. So let's go over here. If you are not familiar with color form, or color film rather, color film is an icon up here at the top of your program. And when you click it, you will see various things over here on the side. Right now we're in show by color. So if I select this, I'm selecting everything, the satin stitch and this lacework fill. But if I select the color film icon right here, I'm opting to show objects. Well, now we can see all of the objects in our design. So we have the lacework, the outline of the D, the inside of the D, and then some other options here. So I'm going to choose the top option, which is our lacework fill, and I'm going to go to Object Properties. Now, in this case, I'm going to make sure that I am under the fill stitch tab, and I want to change this lace work to be 0.1 under size X, size Y, column spacing, and row spacing. And to preview, you can say apply, and now look at how much smaller that became. And if you're happy with the way that looks, we just say okay. And now our knockdown stitch is complete. So now let's view it by color again. And as we can see here, because we are in design view rather than artistic view, there's what true view or artistic view looks like. I want to cut this in half because remember, we're doing a split letter design. So I'm going to go to my edit toolbox drawer and I'm going to select the knife. And this is pretty easy. I'm just going to left click, and then right click. And you can see these bolder lines here are actually our vertical center and our horizontal center. And now I'm going to left click again here and hit enter on my keyboard. And now what this has done, look at that. It's created 3 designs there. And so at this point, what I'd like to do is hit my blue selector, and I'm going to right click and drag and use the arrows on my keyboard to move this about 1.5 inches. It's really just a visual thing for you, whatever you would like to do. And now there we have our split letter. Now the next thing I want to do after this is I want to take my digitize drawer and I want to choose an open object, and then I want to choose satin, and I want to actually click 2 left clicks and then an enter to create a little band there. And I can select this one and I can copy and paste and then use my arrows on my keyboard to drag this into place above the bottom design. That looks pretty good. Now, you can see that this is a little bit thicker than my outline design. So what I want to do at this point is let's evaluate the thickness of this by selecting object properties and looking at our outline stitch. So the satin width is 0.118. So now remember our color film, how we can view by objects? Well, I want to select all of my little D units here. So I'm going to select the top one, hold down Shift on my keyboard and select the bottom and go to Object Properties, Satin, and make sure that this also says 0.118. Let's apply to preview. That looks good. And let's say OK. And so now what you can see here is that those are the same width. Now, finally, another thing that I like to do is I would like my satin stitching to kind of stitch out in a way where it's not bouncing back and forth and doing all kinds of weird things. So I'm going to select all of my outline designs, and I'm holding down Control on my keyboard to do this. So I've selected everything except my cross stitch fill that's inside the D. And I'm going to go to my Edit tab, and I'm going to select Black Work Run. And then down here, there's a little command that says Enter Entry Point, and I'm just going to select Enter on my keyboard. And then this is going to control the amount of jump stitches in my design. Finally, I want to fill this area with my last name. So I'm going to revisit our lettering tab and the lettering, and I'm going to click in the design area, and I'm going to type in my last name. And I can choose all sorts of fonts, but let's go to Object Properties, and let's select a font. And I'm going to give you fair warning, I used Amalfi Coast. I really like that one. And there it is. And I can kind of position this how I like it using my enlarge tabs, which are these little boxes there. The top box here is kind of skews it. The side boxes will stretch it wider, and the corner ones proportionately enlarge it and reduce it. But I have to say I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. And the only thing I have to say is I wish it was the whole thing was just a little bit wider. So let's do a Control A on the keyboard to select all. And now let's make this just a little bit wider. Oh, that looks great. And finally, Debbie had mentioned when you work with your knockdown stitch, which is this little lacy crisscrossy look here, I'm going back to my color film show objects, and I'm going to select the bottom portion, hold down Shift, and the top portion there like that. And I'm going to change this color, change it to white. Let's view it in artistic view. And now that's going to be my knockdown stitch, while the navy blue portion will be all satin stitching and in black. And so that's basically how we create our design. So I wanted to show you an alternative with the lettering. If we start our design over here in Artwork Canvas, so you would simply go to your letter, type in this area the letter that you want, select your pointer, and let's just resize it something. And this is not the font that I want, so I'm just going to kind of double click this here so it's highlighted. There we go. And now I want to find the Franklin Gothic Heavy, and that's what we're looking for. And so in this scenario, I want to convert this to a bitmap, say OK, and now let's go over to our embroidery side. And I'm going to go to my Auto Digitize folder, select Magic Wand, click on this letter. It's only one color, that's fine. We say OK. And now as I hover over it and it kind of turns white, I click it, delete my photo by clicking in color film and delete on my keyboard. And then I'm going to select this and make it a lacework fill. And then I would do all my adjustments like you saw before. So that's one way to do this, starting in the artwork canvas and then working with embroidery canvas. So now that we have our design firmed up and we're happy with it, it's time to send it over to our machine. And now let's talk about how we're going to prep our stabilizer and our toweling. So getting ready to embroider, we want to cut 2 pieces of the Aquafilm Plus to fit in the medium square clamp hoop. We're going to peel the backing off of one piece of that Aquafilm Plus with the peel and stick stabilizer and adhere it to the top piece, but don't peel that bottom off. Then we're going to place this paper backing side up and hoop only the stabilizer paper side up in our medium clamp hoop. Then I'm using this OESD scoring tool to score and then peel the protective paper away, which is exposing the sticky side of the stabilizer. Then I'm going to put that aside and grab our fluffy towel. Along with my fluffy towel, I'm going to spray the backside of this Stitch 2O, which is just a water-soluble topper. And approximately 8 inches square is fine, but I think the stabilizer I have is 10 inches wide. And then we're going to locate a spot on this towel where we want to aim to put our monogram into place. So I'm going to put the water-soluble topper in that area. And I'm using a heat vanishing pen to mark the exact placement on the Stitch 2O where the bottom center of my monogram needs to go. And this monogram is about 3/8 of an inch from the flat band that, isn't floofy. So now let's place this on the aqua mesh. I'm going to use some pinpoint placement in order to get this lined up, but I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm not using the scanning camera on my 990 or even the morph. I'm simply using the pinpoint placement and the grid. And I'm just going to touch the bottom center grid to align I just need to touch the bottom center grid dot and move that until it's over our bottom center marking on our towel. Then I select the pin, and then I'm going to go over to the bottom right dot and make sure that it's continuing to be about 3/8 of an inch from that line or right at that line that I drew with my pen. And it's not, it needs to wiggle a little bit. So I'm going to do that and get it into position. And then once I like the placement, then I'm going to pin that into place and I'm going to stitch. So one thing I do want to warn you, my Stitch 2O has not been kept in a plastic bag and it's a little brittle. So I had to do a couple of layers because I almost had a little catastrophe with it because it started ripping while I was stitching. But just keep that in mind. And then we're just going to follow the color prompt. So we're going to stitch white first, and then we're going to stitch that contrast black. Well, it's all done. All we have to do is remove the work from the hoop, remove the topper, cut the stabilizer free, and give it a bath.
Well, did you enjoy our lesson? I think this monogram looks really super cute, and it's going to look even better hanging on a towel rack in the new black and white bathroom. You know, I don't know. It's not everyone's taste, but I used to have this bathroom when I lived in Vermont in a Victorian home that was just like my dream bathroom. So Chris and I, he agreed to let us have that slipper foot clawfoot tub and the black and white tile floor that I grew up with as a kid, and now everything in there is black and white. But okay, enough. All right. If you liked watching this lesson and you want to see more videos, tips and tricks and all of those things, hey, check out our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Happy digitizing, embroidering, and all of the other things that you do.